Alright, what is up? So today we're going to be tying a shrimp fly that I've come up with, and I just kind of sat down and thought to myself, after tying a couple of spawning shrimps and I kind of like the flies that kind of float there rather than sink down really fast and sit on the bottom. So I got to thinking and I was like, I want to make a realistic looking shrimp fly. And I've tied the spawning shrimp where it's just kind of like the head and the bottom is sitting in the mud or in the bottom somewhere. And I got to thinking and I was like, all right, let's see what we can come up with. So I kind of did a little spawning shrimp head and then added an articulation in the fly to the shrimp tail, and it actually is fished backwards. So this is what the fly kind of looks like right here. And you can see this is our head right here. The kind of point that comes off of the shrimp, and this is a prototype, so we're gonna kind of improvise on this a little bit. And then this is the head right here with the legs coming out, and this is the shrimp body, the tail. So I added a little dumbbell eye right here just so it sits, when it's sitting in the water, it's gonna sit, it's gonna sit straight up and down just like that, rather than on its side or anything like that. And I've tested it in the water, and it looks pretty good. So we have some flash for our antennas, some monofilament eyes that we're gonna make in this, and I'll kind of show you how to make those eyes as well in this little video. So let's get started. We're gonna be tying on a Daichi 2546 size 4 hook for the head, this part right here. And then for the back, or the sacrificial hook is what we're going to call it, because we actually cut off the barb on this. We're going to be using a Gamakatsu SS15 in a size 2/0 to tie that. And that is right here. And we're actually going to bend this hook shank to make that little bend for the shrimp body right there. Okay, so to start with this head, we're going to use some chartreuse thread, and this is ultra thread. It is size 210 in like I said, a chartreuse color. And we're going to start at the very front and just make some tight, clean wraps all the way back. Oops, what did I do there? There we go. Back, and then as you kind of get to the shank, you're gonna slow down and just make sure it's exactly the way that you want it on there. I like to keep the wraps kind of tight. We're gonna come down to right about there, right about here on the shank, and then just kind of drop our thread, let it hang, grab our scissors here, and snip it off right there. Now you can kind of clean that up afterwards, because your thread is going to want to slip a little bit when it hangs just like that. So the first thing that we want to tie in is we want to take some tan EP fibers, and we'll trim these up later, but we're going to want to put them in about this much, and we're going to make sure our thread is where we want it to be. Do a loose wrap around our EP fibers, and then kind of do another wrap and tighten it down a little bit. And then we're going to come behind our fibers over here, give it a wrap or two, and then come back over, give it another wrap. And then just let that hang. Now we're going to grab our scissors, and we can trim this off. Trim our excess off right there. Perfect. And then just kind of clean that up. Just like that. Come on down to right there. Okay, and we're going to clean this up later, so don't worry about that too much. All right, so now what we want to do is we're going to make some monofilament eyes. So you can use the EP eyes, the shrimp eyes that they make for you. I find that those are really, they're good eyes, and they're easy. You don't have to make them, but it is also super easy to make them And I make them with UV glue. So I'm gonna have a light and my UV resin glue. And this is a kind of one that I just use, and I don't use it for head cement. It's more for body forming and stuff like that. So I'm gonna take my monofilament. This is Berkeley Trilene in a 30 pound. And I'm gonna kind of already have my light on and ready to go right here. So I'm gonna put it in, just dip it, and then wait for this to form a glob on the bottom. And as soon as that forms, I'm gonna hit it with the UV light, and it's gonna cure just like that. Just like that, and I can kind of move the light around, get more coverage on it. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the eye. So this eye is going to keep its shape now. I can move it and that eye isn't going anywhere. That's right there. That's on there. And now I'm actually going to come in on the other side and do the exact same thing. It does not take very long at all to do this. You do, however, want to make sure that you have enough glue on there to form that eye. And you want your eyes to be about the same size on both sides. You don't want one being way bigger than the other or way smaller than the other. You want it to be just about the same size. So whenever you think it's good, hit it with the light. I would say these are about even. Right there. So you can see our eyes they're about the same size right there. And those are going to be our shrimp eyes. So what I like to do with the eyes is you can color them however you want to. Since this fly is like a greener fly, I normally see when you look at shrimp in a bucket, if you've ever caught them, saltwater shrimp, they normally have like a chartreuse looking eye or like a bright, vibrant eye on them. And you can kind of see that when the sun hits it. So I'm thinking about coming in with this color Sharpie right here. I'm not sure exactly what color it is, but you can kind of just draw on your UV eye that you just made. And it'll take to it pretty well. See how that's colored in a nice kind of chartreuse color now, and this side is still clear. You can see the difference. Just stay with the green pattern. You can make them black if you want to. I did that with the other fly that I tied, my other shrimp fly. And then once you color it, keep that light on. Get your glue again. And once it's colored the way you want it, you can just dip it in one more time for a nice little seal on there. And you really don't need a whole lot, just enough to give it like a thin outer layer. And again, you want your eyes to be about the same color. And the same size, I meant to say the same size. Okay, that looks good. And don't worry if your monofilament isn't completely smooth. It'll be okay. You just want to make sure that the eye is round. All right, cool. So these are our finished eyes that we just made right there. All done. And then we are pretty much done with this UV glue right here. All right, so now that we've done that, we want to put our flash on the front. Now I'm thinking, I have been doing this green flash for the front, but I'm thinking about this copper because if you look at shrimp in the water, they have kind of coppery antennas coming off the side, or this crystal flash as a kind of neutral color, but it's still gonna add that good flash. So actually, I think I'm gonna go with this crystal flash. It's a Hairline Dubin crystal flash in pearl is the color. I'm gonna kind of use that, and I'm gonna take one full strand from one side. So I'm gonna cut it about, actually, well, I guess I'll just pull the whole thing out. And then just kind of match the ends right here. It's like that, so they're about the same length. And then you can actually just split your thread when you do this. And if they're not the exact same length, don't really worry about it because you're gonna cut it off anyhow. But you're gonna put that around your thread and then just wrap it, and it'll be perfect. And then we can kind of we can honestly just leave those until we're almost done. And you're gonna want to take a little bit more, and then do the exact same thing that you did with the other. And these ones are gonna be shorter than the first ones that you tied in. So about the same length, wrap it around the thread, put your thread around, and kind of wrap forward on it a little bit. And there we go. Just have it split the shank, split the vise, and that is all good. You have your antennas in now and your flash. So we're done with our flash. Clean that up a little bit. Now what we want to do is tie in our eyes. So let me make sure we want to tie in our eyes first. You know what? I think we're gonna tie in our little egg sacs. So I have this orange EP fiber right here. It's a 3D fiber, and you really don't need a whole lot at all. So I'm gonna take out a piece about this thin and literally just cut this is all I need right here. This little bit right there. That's it. And I'm gonna kind of put it in on the bottom, just like this. I'm gonna wrap up a little bit and then put it in on the bottom, make two loose wraps. Actually, no, we wanna leave our thread where it was. Make two loose wraps and then tighten it down. And then you can layer your EP forward, lay it forward, and then capture that right there. Awesome. Now we're gonna flip our hook, and now we tie in our eyes. So our eyes, we wanna have our eyes up, and we want them to be out a little bit. So they're not straight aligned with our hook shank. We want them to be sticking out a little more, kind of alongside with the head that we have. Okay, so just kind of tie that in as we go. Around, and you can, once you get back here, once you kind of tie it in, just cut that off, and it's ending right about here if you can't see that. Okay. Just keep that kind of where you want it. And I like to keep the wraps kind of even, keep that monofilament that we're tying in even with the stuff, and then kind of wrap back up there and keep a decent amount of pressure on your thread. It's 210, so it's not really going to break very easily at all. Just know like the limit of it. Okay, so we have our eye right here, and we're going to want to wrap it up this shank a little bit. About right about there is good. All right, so now we're gonna take our other side, and this is what this side looks like, by the way. So our eye comes in, and it's right about here. If you can see that, that's our eye right there. So we want the same exact thing on this other side. So I'm gonna kind of flip it so it's easier to see. And then we want it to be angled out a little bit when we tie it in. So once we have a good spot for it, we're gonna kind of start loosely, and then same as the other one, work our way back down. And then, like I said with the other one, you can do the same thing with this, and cut it off right there. Now with this side, I normally find it easier to kind of take wraps that aren't so close together on the way down the hook shank. And then as you come back up, kind of make those wraps closer together. These eyes won't go anywhere. And then just make sure that on both sides, your eyes, they're ending in your thread for your eyes that are holding it where it needs to be. Make sure they end in the same place. Okay. And then you can pull your eyes out and adjust them as you see fit right there. Okay. So now we're gonna take our tarantula brush, and it's just EP fibers basically with a little bit of like a stretchy kind of leg material combined with it. So if you make your own brush, or if you know anyone who's done that, you can kind of make it yourself. But this tarantula brush is really good for tying shrimps or anything that you want those legs to be in the brush for. I've seen people tie tarpon flies with it too, and not in a shrimp pattern, just literally regular bait fish kind of fly. Anyways, so we're gonna tie this in, and then we're gonna end right about here on our hook, so we have enough room to tie it off when we get back there. So we're gonna start, and we're gonna palmer this forward, or palmer it back, sorry, toward the shrimp's head, and then we're gonna wrap toward the hook eye, where the actual tail of the shrimp is going to be at. And these wraps don't have to be touching wraps. They can if you want, but I do find that you're gonna go through a lot of this brush if you make touching wraps. I think I went through one whole strand of this, like I'm using right now, on the back end of the last shrimp fly that I tied. So just be prepared to do that if you're making touching wraps with this stuff. And just keep palmering it back as you get farther down the hook shank. All right. So now that we are here, we're going to come around and kind of push those fibers back. And then after we capture our brush on the end, we can push everything back toward the hook bend. And we can tie this off. I do a half hitch beforehand. And then what we do is take our whip finish tool and throw a whip finish on here. 1 or 2, either one is fine. I did 2. Perfect. And then cut off our thread. Okay. So this is the head for this fly. So like I said, we're gonna trim those trim that flash up later, and we're also gonna trim up this body later. And we can actually throw this back in the vise really quickly. And one thing that you want to make sure you do is take a bodkin needle or a comb or something and just pick out the fibers, because when you palmer them forward like that, you're gonna want to have them out as naturally as possible. And by picking them out, it's gonna help you do that, and it looks a lot better after you pick it out. Especially if you do touching wraps with your tarantula brush, then you are definitely going to want to pick those fibers out, because they're going to be stuck together like nobody's business afterwards. Okay, so we're gonna take care of this right now. So we already have 2 kind of shorter pieces of flash. So we're actually gonna find the 2 shorter pieces. We're going to cut them off about right there. And then our 2 longer pieces, we want to be about right here. So our shrimp is going to have that kind of shape right there. And then we can pop it out of the vise and kind of trim this head up a little bit. Just be super careful. Be super careful. Don't do what I just did. Cut one of the antennas off. It's fine. It'll still fish. You just want to be super careful when trimming this fly up, so you don't make the same mistake that I did. See what I did there? It has 1 long antenna and 2 shorter ones, and it should have 2 longer ones, which I tied in there, but I cut this one off. Unfortunate, but it's what we do. We learn. We're novice fly fishermen. So, all right, now for the tail, for the back of this one, we are going to want to get a pair of pliers, and I have 2 pairs of pliers here. And we're gonna want this, we want to kind of mimic what a shrimp looks like. So I'm gonna grab it here, just like that, and squeeze really hard because these hooks don't bend very easily, which is a good thing. So grab it, and then right here I'm gonna kind of bend it down, just like that, and that'll be our little shrimp bag. So this is where we're gonna tie it on, and our articulation is gonna be right about there. Okay. So we're gonna want to drop this in the vise here. Perfect. All right. And then start our thread wraps, going up. All right, and this is about where our articulation is going to want to be. So I have these small dumbbell eyes, which I'm going to want to put about right here on my shank. So I'm going to come down. We're going to see what we can do with these dumbbell eyes this far down. So I'm going to make our, just like we would normally do on here, just like that, and then come over that way, and then I'm gonna wrap up around the shank again, this way, this way. We want to make these look even on there too, just like we would when tying eyes onto anything else. Oh, it's not good, putting a lot of pressure on the bobbin there. Make my thread come out. All right, we're good though. Gonna get up close to the eyes, do a couple more wraps, and you really want to make sure these eyes are secure on there. Like you really, really do. All right, that should be good right there. Now we're gonna wrap back up to where we want our little articulation to be. And that'll be good, right about there. So this part is we're gonna cut the hook off right at that bend. So what we can actually do is take some Zap-A-Gap or some Crazy Glue and kind of put it on the eyes that we just tied in. I'm actually going to use some Crazy Glue because it's a little bit easier. Just put a little dot on those eyes and kind of have it cover the thread. You can flip it and get it in the gap there. Get it in the gap there. Because we do not want these eyes, we don't want them coming off, or we don't want them moving at all. Because this is what's going to keep our fly swimming straight the entire time. So really for the back, all that you really need to do is add this tarantula brush on there and then wrap back. However, because we're putting an articulation in here, I have this 65-pound braid and it's Powerline Plus. And what we're going to do is tie a stretch of this in, just like this. you want it to be on top of the shank. You don't need that much out. Just kind of tighten these wraps as you go down. Oh. And see how we have this little tag in right here? We're actually going to take that and pull it back onto the hook shank itself. All right, and I'm gonna wrap that back in pretty tight wraps. We don't want this coming out. This is what's gonna hold our big old redfish on there. Okay, so right there, I'm gonna wrap it right back up to where we started at. And if you pull on this, it's not going anywhere. So that's one side, and then we're gonna put our shrimp head on there, just like that, and it's gonna sit right there. And we want to have just a little bit of space for it to move on there. We don't want too big of a loop in between the two hooks. So this is what our articulation is going to be right here, right above those eyes. We're going to have that in there. Leave it. We want it to have a little bit of wiggle room. So we don't want to lock it down too much. However, we don't want to, leave it to where it's not gonna move it all. Okay. So kind of same thing we did the first time. We're gonna come all the way down, and then when we get down to here, pull it back up the opposite direction, put a little bump on the thread right there so it sits up on the braid a little bit easier, and then make, like pretty tight wraps going up so that we don't damage the line. We just don't want it to pull through. Like I said before, this is what is going to take all of the weight of having the fish on there off the back. Just like that. Good, good, good. And then we can take our braid and cut that off right there. Keep wrapping forward, capturing everything in there all the way up to the loop that we made before. Okay, so now it's time to tie in another piece of our tarantula brush, which we're gonna come down this way with. So we're gonna tie that in on the wire piece that we had sticking out the back. Press that wire piece down, keep it where we want it to go, and then wrap back up. Just making sure that it's nice and secure. It's not gonna get ripped out too easily. And then wrap all the way to where we see that articulation. Now you can make wider wraps down. You can tighten those wraps too. If you want to try and tighten that braid down even more, that's a good thing. It's not a problem. Just make sure it's nice and tight and where we want it. Okay, and then when you get down to about right here, I'm gonna add a half hitch in here, just like that. Pull my little bobbin holder out to the side, and rest my bobbin on there while we wrap this. So just like before, we're gonna take our material, our tarantula brush, and we're gonna palmer it backwards. Exact same way we did it before. Now these do not have to be touching wraps either. We are going to want these to be a little farther apart, maybe leave a few millimeters in between your wraps. Just a few coming up. Good, good, good. Keep it palmered back. This fly definitely does not take 15 minutes. It's a little bit longer of a fly, and we still have to trim it up and clean it up, get it how we really want it to sit. Although it is starting to come together. That little orange spot on the front really makes it look a lot better. All right, and there, and we are almost done here. All right, so we can remove this. Our half hitch is going to keep that in a nice spot for us. And then we are going to come up here and we're going to capture our fibers right here. Just like that. 3 nice tight wraps. Cut off our excess right there. Push everything forward. And a nice little head for our fly right there. Half hitch. And whip finish. I'm going to do 2 whip finishes on here. Perfect. All right, now we want to take some UV glue. Turn our little light on here, our UV light on, and just apply some glue all around that head that we just made. Just like that. Kind of spin it around, keep the glue going where you want it to go, and then once it's where you need it to be, zap it with some UV light, and it really does not take very long to cure at all. So we're pretty much done there. All right, so if we pop this out of the vise real quick, if we can pop it out of the vise real quick, what in the world is going on? Okay, there we go. So out of the vise, this is what we have right now. How it is, honestly, you could probably fish it. It would probably be okay. However, we want to clean this up just a little bit. And if you look at a shrimp, they have a taper that goes down on their tails. So we're actually going to pop this back in our vise just to trim this fly up a little bit. All right, so I'm going to take our scissors, kind of start Actually, we want to make sure we pick these fibers out just like we did before, for the front of the fly. Just like that. Okay, so now that we have it all picked out, see how it's all the same thickness going up? That does not look very realistic to me at all. So we're gonna take our fibers, kind of leave them how they would be, and we're gonna start at the very front of our fly, the back of the shrimp, front of the fly, and just taper that up. Just start it off, taper it, kind of come out, start closer to the head on the bottom, and then it's gonna be a longer taper. So with this tarantula brush, you're gonna have the legs and stuff coming out. You want it to come up and just make sure it's kind of even. It tapers like a shrimp would, all the way up, and then right here you want to come out. There we go, just like that. And on the bottom, you want to do the exact same thing. Start closer in. And kind of let that body thicken out as you get closer up to the head. Like that, and make sure it's all even as you're cutting and tapering and messing with all of that. Just kind of don't leave too many outliers or anything. Now the bottom of this fly, you can leave some of this tarantula sticking out. However, you don't want anything too long, like that. And then just kind of hold your head up to where you want it to be and kind of just taper that in as well, kind of at the same level as it was before. Round out the top and the sides so it's not as aggressive as it was beforehand. That is looking pretty decent. Just make sure you get that taper the way you want it. That taper is pretty important. I believe it is important, at least. All right, and I'm gonna need some more tarantula brush because that was my last little bit there. Okay, so we want these legs coming down in the front, and we're gonna kind of trim those all about the same length. Right there. All right, and that is looking, I'm thinking this is looking pretty good. So if we were to chuck this in the water, it's gonna have this little action between the head and the tail, just like that, which I really like that little look. We got the legs right here, and this little hotspot accents the head really, really well. So now our last step is, since our crazy glue is dry and everything now, we're going to take our pliers, and this is the reason it's called a sacrificial hook. Find the spot on the hook where you'd still have a little bit on the bottom. We do not want to cut off where the thread is, because that is what's holding those eyes on there. And then once you do that, snap it clean. Snap that barb off of the front just like that. And then, let's grab our fly. grab our fly. Here we are. There we go. That is my little shrimp fly, and then you can kind of just keep cleaning it up if you want, as you see fit. But this is my little shrimp fly that I came up with, and I am very much looking forward to fishing with this thing and seeing if it will catch me a decent sized redfish. So thank you guys for watching. I know it's a long video, it's a long tie, but hopefully it is a good one. So yeah, thank you for watching, and catch me next time on The Novice Fly Fisherman.